Hey, it's Professor Williams Carter back at it again. I know it's been a while. A lot of things were going on with me, but now I'm back to make more videos. And I just want to let you know there's this guy named Zion Dynasty. He's right about black people being in the Americas, the Western Hemisphere, the New World. Before Christopher Columbus, that is true. And I even have the books to come show for it. Check it out. I recommend you guys to get this book. It's called We Are Not Africans, The Black Native Americans. It's by Clyde Winters. So please check it out. The major African group to settle ancient America was the Manding people. The Manding, the Mende people. Why do you think so many black Americans, when they do a DNA result on their paternal or maternal line on African ancestry, comes back Mende? See, in the southwestern United States, forgive me, I don't know how to pronounce this. Cabeza da Vaca said the Mandinka people were a dominant group. This word Mandinka agrees with the term Mandinka, used to denote the Manding-speaking people. Moreover, in Mexico and Panama, we have many place names that allude to ancient Manding presence. For example, in Panama, we find the Sierra de Mali mountain range. In Darien, east of the Gulf of San Miguel, the Manding River and the Manding Bay. You see, the black Native Americans. So when black people say, be like, oh, I'm indigenous, there's truth to that, of course. But you would have to show for it. It says the black Native Americans of North America were mainly descendants of Paleo-Americans and Africans who sailed to America between 12,000 BC to 1492 AD. What was going on in 1492 AD? Well, you had Judah banished from Spain and Portugal, migrating into Africa, but they also migrated into the Americas. And you also have to remember, I did a video on the Mende people, which are the tribe of Dan. So what does that tell you? You had Danites that been going to the States. And from last time I checked, Dan is known to be one of the tribes that are known to be sailors, if I'm not mistaken. The Spanish described the Aztecs as blacks. Below is a picture of Montezuma, which was a Mexican Aztec. Look at him, he was black. I don't have to lie about that. He has feathers. You see that? The man was black. You see how people love to argue and say, how can the Native Americans be black when you had ones that were looking Asian or Mongoloid or whichever, while you had ones that were actually black? Well, this is the thing, guys. That's what people are not realizing. These were confederations made up of black and Mongoloid or Asiatic Native Americans. For example, the Iroquois were actually not a people, but a confederation of 6 Native American nations. The Cayuga, Mohawk, Seneca, Oneida, Onondaga, and Tuscarora. In terms of power, they were perhaps the most formidable Native American group in North America, and the most represented in the imaginative works of the European settlers, controlling at their zenith a territory covering Massachusetts to Ohio and Quebec and Ontario to Kentucky. Much of what is now Georgia was a stronghold of the black Native Americans. The vast majority of native black Americans lived in California or along the eastern seaboard in North America. They belonged to many confederations just again, including the Muscohan and Algonquin. Some of their tribal names include Choctaw, Tuscarora, Sicolan, Patwa-Womek, Tamakra, Nanticoke, Kashita, Kashiti, Seminoles, and Yamasee, to name a few. The black Native American tribes mainly belong to the Iroquois, Muscogean, and Algonquin confederacies. The vast majority of the Native Americans that formerly lived in the eastern and southeastern United States were black Native Americans with dark skin, kinky, and straight hair. Many black Native Americans owners in the West Indies. Other Native Americans were forced to work on plantations or sold into slavery. Since the ancestors of the black Native Americans had originated in Africa, they began to be identified as slave Indian, freemen, and finally colored. The former black Native Americans simply became identified as color, like the former sub-Saharan slaves instead of Native Americans. You see? So you guys have to remember, the black Native Americans had many wars, first with the Spanish and later the British colonists. These black Native Americans lived on the Atlantic seaboard from New York all the way down into Florida. These black Native Americans fought bravely for their lands. Some were sold into slavery, into the Caribbean, while others were made slaves or identified as Negro freemen. Black Native Americans have a history of fighting Europeans for their independence, or they lost their lives fighting with the French during the French and Indian War. This was especially true in North Carolina. In North Carolina, down into Florida, west into Tennessee, there were many black Native Americans, including the Yuchi, Yamacraw, Creek, Tuscarora, and Yamasee, to name a few black Native American tribes. A large number of Algonquin-speaking tribes were also black Native American. The Yuchi were a major black Native American tribe in the Southeast and Midwest. You see, guys? We were already here. These black Native Americans were of Mende descent, which means if you do a DNA test, obviously it would come back Mende. That explains why you have a lot of black Americans that have Mende ancestry, related to Mansa Musa. Look at this brother right here. You can't tell me he wasn't black. Look at him. Just look at him. As a result, many black Native Americans were made into slaves by the colonialists. Some of them were even sold into slavery. In the Caribbean, there were some black Cherokee, but for the most part, the Cherokee migrated into territory originally occupied by the black Native American Creek, Yuchi, Tuscarora, and Yamasee tribes. You see? And remember, crap, I should have highlighted this, but this is really important. Many Algonquin speakers were native black Americans, which would mean that they were descendants of Mende people. Naudowessie was a black Native American tribe in South Dakota. Doesn't Kyrie Irving have ties to that Native American tribe? His mother, actually. He actually claimed to be black Native American on his mother's side. You see? These people were black. Black Native Americans. We were already here. And Father Louis Hennepin wrote about the black Native Americans, which are these people. It says, black Native Americans in Dakotas, as usual, we see villages where the Native American tribes were either Mongoloid or black. The Naudowessies were Dakota black Native Americans or Indians. They are part of the Siouan family known as Sioux. Hewitt says the name was a Chippewa. The name was Chippewa, namely Naudowessie. Please bear with me. A diminutive of Nadowi, an adder or enemy to the Mongoloid Indians. Some of the Chippewa were black tribes. Just again, you have people like Kyrie Irving claiming that they have ancestry to black Native American tribes like these people. You can't tell me that these people aren't black. Look at them. And if any of you guys still don't believe me, check this out. The Mende language, Nanticoke and Lenape. Around 25,000 Mende speakers set sail for the Americas in the 1300s from the Mali Empire of West Africa. Some of these Mende speakers may have been the ancestors of the Nanticoke. Come on now. You gotta remember, Emperor Abu Bakr Muhammad of Mali gave his throne to Mansa Musa, and they embarked with his fleet into the Atlantic Ocean in search of the continent opposite of Africa. You have to remember, the Mende lived in mounds along the Niger rivers, which is back in West Africa. The mound cultures of ancient America were built by Africans, primarily, which means mainly Mende speaking people. The ancient Mende built several types of homes. In ancient times, they built masonry houses and cliff dwellings identical to those found in the American Southwest. In medieval times, they lived on mounds in the most watery areas, and their circular huts made of stone and wood on the top, and their fields in front of the mounds till each day. The Malian people introduced their technology to the Americas. The Mende built dwellings depending on the topography. Near rivers, they lived on mounds. In semi-arid regions, they lived in cliff houses like those found in the Southwest. You see? We contributed a lot to the Americas, even before slavery, even before Christopher Columbus. Here's the proof. The Malians left many inscriptions in the United States and elsewhere after they arrived in the Americas, which is North, South, Central America, and the Caribbean. You see? They left these. So you see, these numerals make it clear that the Nanticoke were descendants of the Malian explorers. In 1300s, many Malians sailed to the Americas, although most Malians settled in Brazil, Mexico, and built the mounds along the Mississippi River, and some Malians settled in Florida. You see, that just tells you why. You see so many black people with these DNA results showing Mende, 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 Mende. Now, I'm not saying none of them could have been descendants of people that were brought on boat from slavery sent to the Americas, but many of these Mende ancestry could also indicate that your people were already here. And there were Muslims in North America, were the Yamasee. In the picture below, we see many Moors wearing turbans and kufic hats fighting the British. Why Moors? Because Moors are Ephraim, but that's another conversation. You see? Look at this. All these guys were black. You see? I don't have to lie to you. And here, we see the Malian ruler compared to the leader of the Yamasee soldiers fighting the British. Both individuals wear the headgear associated with Malian Marines. This cannot be a coincidence. It is further proof of the Moors being in Brazil and the United States. Ephraimite Moors, but that's another conversation I would have to tell you at another time. African origin of Mississippian and Southern death cult mounds. Many mound builders had come with Abu Bakr in 1310. These black Native American mound builders had come from the ancient empire of Mali. So it's even stated by Balboa. He noted Indian traditions of Mexico and Central America indicate that Negroes were among the first occupants of that territory. This is why so many Mexicans have African faces. Many of the late mounds, well, in ancient America, it would appear that many mounds were built by Africans. These mounds were built between 200 BC to 1500 AD. Many of the late mounds in the United States and South America were probably built by some of the 25,000 colonists from Mali who sailed in the direction of the Americas in 1310. Just again, many of the mound builders of the United States and Mexico were Mende speakers. People like to say, how's it possible? Like, black people been all over the world at one point. Why do you think the Most High say in Scripture were scattered? In 1310, Mansa, the king, Abu Bakr of the Mali Empire, set sail from this kingdom in West Africa to visit the lands across the Atlantic. In this expeditionary force, there were 25,000 men and women. Over time, the Malians were nativized, so we can count them among the first black Native Americans. People in West Africa during King Abu Bakr's time were not ignorant of the nautical sciences and navigation. West Africans had a highly developed knowledge of boat technology and navigation sciences. I rest my case. To be honest, there is some truth to that 12 tribes chart. But just again, somebody needs to edit it some more, because hear what I read. It says the French enslaved the Native Americans around the Great Lakes, Minnesota, Missouri Country, and Louisiana. Between 1670 and 1720, many black Native Americans were enslaved. The black Native Americans were sold into slavery throughout the 13 colonies, Canada, and the British West Indies. The majority of black Native Americans sold into slavery by white and Indian slave traders were the Choctaw and Yamasee and other Carolina tribes. So Native Americans were scattered and taken into slavery, but not the ones that we commonly think or think of today. It's the black Native Americans. They're our people.